Hacer unas tomas sirviendo la comida, ¿no? ¿Cómo? Se está grabando ya. Firma toda la sala, buscar las viejas más chicas, ¿no? Esa camisa mojada. De camisa mojada, sácale. Las llevas con camiseta blanca y se con agua para... las peladas corriendo, ¿no? Está enamorado. Yo lo conozco usted flaco. No está, ¿no? ¿Cuándo me ha visto enamorado, amigo? De verdad. Era de culo a la vieja. Me tocó.
think the idea is pretty clear from the term itself, that beyond surface reality, which we're experiencing now with our senses, there is something else. Now, I understand that you're students of anthropology, and my experience is that, because I went to college 2 years ago, my experience is that the modern Western academic approach is not able to penetrate this deep reality. It stays on the surface, studies things that are available to our consciousness through our senses, but won't go beyond, because that which may be beyond our senses is thought to be a realm of belief or religion, something which is not scientific. So this is the theme that I want to address, because in India, and of course I'm representing an Indian tradition of Vedic knowledge, there was never this, until very recent times, when India came under the influence of Western ideas, Western thinking, and that's only in the last 100 years or so, 150 years. And even now in India, as they say, 70% of the population lives in the village, and their way of thinking is traditional. So most of India still follows the ancient, at least some of the ancient ideas that come to us in the Vedas, ancient ideas and culture. So in that culture, the Indian or Vedic culture, there was never this split between science on one hand and religion on the other. That's, of course, very European phenomena, and there's a whole history of that, and it's not my intent and purpose to go into that, and maybe you know more about that than I do. But anyway, that's the history here, that religion and science, which were actually once together, once one. In fact, it is said that science developed out of the Christian religion, but then, due to certain tensions, it split. And science has tended to represent a materialistic and even atheistic point of view, whereas, of course, religion is aiming at God. But since Immanuel Kant, this German philosopher, it's been established that religion isn't allowed to inquire into the areas that science inquires into, and science is not allowed to inquire into the areas of religion like that. So there's a definite gulf between the two. But that's not a fact in the Indian tradition. And the word Veda, which is, you may have heard of this word, and we often think that it's referring to a collection of religious scriptures from India in the Sanskrit language, going back into ancient times. But actually the word Veda, the Sanskrit word Veda, has a very simple meaning. It means knowledge. And we have in our languages, like in English, wisdom, or even wit. Wit refers to a kind of humorous type of knowing, knowledge. So we have many words in German, Wissen. In Czech language, the word for science is Veda also. So many of our European languages have words that are rooted in this ancient Sanskrit term, Veda, knowledge. So the Vedic knowledge was seen in traditional Indian culture as scientific, but meaning that by scientific, I should explain what I mean by science, because this is often a question. People sometimes accuse me of using the word science in a very special way. So I should explain what I mean when I use this word. It means that there is a logical analysis of cause and effect. You see, there is a study that certain causes lead to certain effects. This is what I mean by the term science, and this is predictable. You can depend upon certain cause following through to a certain effect. This is what modern Western science proposes to do, but this was also the point of view in the ancient Vedas too, that in everything there is a cause and effect. But in the Vedic science, this investigation of cause and effect went beyond the simple surface reality. What we perceive with the senses, simply the interaction of matter. And it was understood that behind the material world, deeper than the world of matter, is a world of spirit. A world, and how do I define spirit? I don't mean ghosts. I mean consciousness. Pure consciousness. Consciousness being, well, you could call it an element, but it's the element of life itself. And consciousness which is not material. Consciousness as an entity which is eternal, which is self-existent, self-illumined, and shining like the sun without beginning or end. And this consciousness, or in Sanskrit language, Brahman, is actually the force, the life-giving force behind the world of matter, cause and effect in the material world. So the Vedic knowledge purported to study the whole range of reality, from surface to deep. So that's also what I mean by deep reality. So Vedic knowledge arises from sound. I want to get across to you today some very key ideas. Of course, the subject matter I'm speaking about is very, very broad. And by the way, how much time do I have? I don't even know.
9 uur of zo.
Till 9 o'clock.
Till 9 o'clock? Oh, that's quite long. Okay. But even till 9 o'clock I couldn't explain all of this completely.
Tomorrow morning.
No, it'll take, if we stop at 9, it'll take us tomorrow morning to get back to Amsterdam. Judging from the time it took us to get here. So anyway, so I want to get across some very key ideas in this session. And one of them is the principle of sound vibration, in Sanskrit, shabda. So this has a kind of interesting resonance in our modern scientific way of looking at things. That science today ultimately breaks down phenomena to vibration. This is in your quantum physics, which is like the cutting edge of material science today. So in quantum physics, you see, about 100 years ago, scientists thought everything reduced down to atoms, and atoms were like tiny billiard balls of solid matter, like little BBs, and they bump into each other. And then they discovered, atoms are made up of even smaller particles, and like this. And then finally, they came to the conclusion that there aren't any real particles. They're what they call wave particles. And I'm not going to explain this either. But they're particles that act like vibration, in other words. Or vibrations that sometimes act like particles. But anyway, it comes down to a kind of fundamental vibration. And this is science today. So the Vedas also teach us that everything reduces ultimately to what is called shabda, or sound vibration. And so the Vedic sages of old thousands of years ago, by meditation, by deep perception into deep reality, they accessed that primeval sound and extracted from it mantras. Mantras are vibrations which have a special power. The word mantra in Sanskrit lets us see what is the power of these vibrations. Man means consciousness or mind, and tra means to free or deliver. So these are vibrations that can free us from ignorance. Our consciousness is right now surrounded by all these material perceptions. And if we simply take everything at face value, then that's considered to be ignorance. You see, that's considered to be more or less like the consciousness of less intelligent sorts of creatures like animals. They accept this display of sense objects as just being everything there is, and more than that is not important to them. So that's considered to be ignorance. So there are special sounds, mantras, that can free our consciousness from that ignorance, that can conduct our consciousness beyond this external display of sense objects. So there were two sides to this Vedic knowledge. One is pertaining to this world that we live in. You see, we have to live in this world that is never denied in the Vedic scriptures. The Vedic scriptures are not teaching a kind of extreme idealism, that we're not matter, we're not material, this is all illusion, so forget it. And live on the top of a mountain or something. Actually, the Vedic literatures gave directions for civilization, ancient civilization. And it really seems to be that this ancient civilization, Vedic civilization, was not only in India in ancient times, but outside in the Middle East, in Egypt, many parts of the world. So there was one side of the Vedic sound vibration which gave direction to civilization, how to live in this world. And the principle that guided the ancient world was sacrifice, yajna. Don't please think that I'm referring to human sacrifices or anything like that. When I use the word sacrifice, I mean in the very literal sense of the term, from Latin, sacrum facere, which means to make sacred. That, like this is called, in our modern way of thinking, this world, the secular world, or the profane world. The world of, modern world is not sacred. The sacred world, again, because of this division of science and religion, so the sacred world is the world of the church. And outside is, they even call it the profane world, or the secular world. So, but the Vedic culture taught, no, we shouldn't live that way. Everything should be made sacred in our life by sacrifice. You see, that this material world is an energy of the divine, an energy of God. It is an effect of the original pure consciousness. And we need to see it in that way, and we need to act in that way. And so, while taking from this world, we should return what we take to the source. This is the process of offering. In Sanskrit, again, yajna, to make sacred sacrifice. So the mantras of the Vedic scriptures, Vedic literatures, directed civilization to make sacrifice at all levels, in all occupations, all features of human society. That was the guiding principle. So this then promoted in a human consciousness goodness. Goodness in Sanskrit means sattva, sattva guna. This is an illumined state of mind. To be able to see and act beyond one's immediate desires for gratification of the senses, but to actually see an entire cosmic plan, you might say. Cosmic energies that are guiding us in what we're doing. So this is made possible by sacrifice, this broadening of consciousness, broadening of the vision. So that was pertaining to this world that we live in. And then there was another type, you can say, of Vedic mantra, which took one deep into the realm of pure consciousness, of Brahman, of pure spirit, beyond this world. Because this world, yes, it's an energy of God and all of that. And it is to be made sacred, but ultimately it is temporary. You see? And we, as spiritual beings, each one of us within our hearts have a spiritual spark, which is the real self. We are eternal. The essence of the self is eternal. So every spirit spark, spiritual being, has the responsibility to revive its eternal consciousness. In ordinary life, we identify with the body. We think the body is ourself, but the body is temporary. And so those who go through life simply identifying the body with the body and never understanding that they're anything more than that, what they do is they set themselves up for unhappiness. Because if I think I'm the body, then naturally I become attached to this body as myself. I become attached to the activities of this body as being most important. But all of this passes away in time. Time robs us every day, bit by bit by bit, of that which we think is our life. And then at one point, time takes everything. And so one who's lived with his consciousness simply focused in this realm of matter is going to be very unhappy when everything is taken away. And this is the logic behind the doctrine of reincarnation. Because to take another birth in this world simply means that one is trying to again resume their unfinished business. You see, we have unfulfilled desires, unfinished business. In other words, unfinished karma that keeps bringing us back. And that karma exists as long as we're focused on this material world as being everything that there is. You see? As long as we don't know ourselves as being eternal spirit, then we're forced by the law of karma to take birth here again. We're forced by our own desires. Actually, it's what we want. Because at the time of death, we lament, we suffer. I'm dying. The greatest tragedy. So we're lamenting because we want to live in another body. And so we get another body. Very logical. That's our desire. So the Vedic literature then had these two divisions. What is called apara Brahman, the knowledge of this material world, how to live in this world in a state of sacrificial goodness so that one can perform one's duties, everything that should be done in society, and yet remain in a state of spiritual purity, developing the finer qualities of spirit at the same time. And then the other department of the Vedic knowledge or Vedic mantras was the para Brahman, that which conducts our consciousness into the deep reality the spiritual reality beyond this material realm. So the essence of these two features of Vedic knowledge is presented in one book which you've already been introduced to, the Bhagavad Gita, which traditionally is understood to be 5,000 years old, spoken by Sri Krishna to his disciple Arjuna. So the Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses. If you read the verses, it can take 45 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, like that. But in these 750 verses, all of the essence of Vedic knowledge is to be found, dealing with our life in this world and dealing with the deep reality of the spiritual realm beyond. So, the Bhagavad Gita teaches us that we are all eternal individuals. Each one of us is, as I said, a spirit soul, a spiritual person, an individual eternally. And we are, as individuals, we are persons. Persons means that we have desires which actually arise from the soul. And our desire is basically for personal relationship, personal exchange, personal love, personal fulfillment. And that is this search of the heart. That is what we're all seeking in this world. A way to satisfy our inner desires. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us that because we are spiritual, our real relationship of fulfillment is with the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Spirit, which is Krishna himself. The Para Brahman, the personification of Brahman, or the spiritual, the deep reality, the spiritual nature. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to revive that relationship with God, with Krishna. And again, the means of doing this, the principal means of doing this, is through sound vibration. Through this Shabda, spiritual sound, mantra. So in our Krishna consciousness movement, we basically chant a mantra which has become world famous in the last 20 or 30 years. That's the Hare Krishna mantra. This is called the Maha Mantra. Of all the thousands and thousands of Vedic mantras, the Maha Mantra, Maha means greatest. So this is an essential mantra that when chanted, it, revives this spiritual consciousness, this perception of deep reality. So, what is that perception? That perception is that this external reality that we're now experiencing, and which we may be taking as all in all, as everything, is a reflection. It's we can call it surface reality, because just like on the surface of a mirror, there's a reflection. And, like in a house of mirrors, or the trick of light and shadow, you can sometimes think that the reflection you see in a mirror or a glass is real. Sometimes you become shocked. Turning a corner, there's a mirror in front of you, and you see yourself standing there. For a moment you think that it is real. So the Vedas tell us that this is what's going on. That this material world is a kind of reflection, a shadowy reflection of a transcendent reality. And because we are spiritual persons, we belong in that transcendent reality. So how can we know that this is just a reflection? The answer is that just like in a reflected image in a mirror, there's no depth. And therefore, there's the appearance, but there's not substance. There's not actual, substantial reality there. And if you try to have a relationship with your reflection in the mirror, that gets rather weird. It's like that, what was that movie? Taxi Driver, Robert De Niro talking in the mirror. What he was saying, what are you looking at? I know you're looking at me because there's nobody else here. Like that. So, we're in this material world, we're trying to relate with others, but through this mirror of illusion. And we're trying to be happy in this world. We're trying to be fulfilled in this world. But obviously, how can we? When this world is temporary. When everything that we're experiencing, from the subjective point of view, as I said, death can come at any moment. And when death comes, then this which we are perceiving now and accepting as real disappears. Like a dream. It's gone. Like that. So more or less we're living in a dream. You see? As long as we're alive, you see, there's a principle also revealed in the Vedas, it's called ahankara, or false ego. It's a kind of, addiction, an obsessive attachment to matter, in which one forces out of his mind any thought of death or any thought of an abrupt change from this, what we're perceiving now. No, this is it. This is everything. So we go through life convincing ourselves that this is everything, but death will come and then all of this disappears. So really there's no long-term hope of fulfillment or satisfaction, attaining anything in such a level of existence as this. Yes, so this is a kind of reflection or shadow of an ultimate reality. So what we are looking for here, you see, we're looking in this world for satisfaction. We're looking in this world for happiness. But we're not able to find it here. But what we want is not totally unreal. It's just that we're looking in the wrong place. Again, it's like having a conversation in a mirror. We want to have a relationship. But you won't have any relationship if you simply talk to yourself in the mirror. You see. So, there is this possibility of fulfillment. But we have to look for it in the right place. In the right level of consciousness. And that's in the realm of deeper reality. The realm of Brahman spirit. Or the realm of which we call Krishna consciousness. So in that realm, which is in the Upanishads, which are philosophical section of the Vedas, that realm is called the realm of rasa. There is a statement in the Taittiriya Upanishad about the nature of God. In Sanskrit it says rasa, simple. Raso vaisaha. Saha means he. Rasa means taste. So this is what is driving us on in everything we do. We're looking for a taste. And I don't just mean taste of the tongue, although that's very important. But for every sense there is a taste. There's an appropriate taste. Like people talk about their taste in clothes, or their taste in music, or their taste in reading, or whatever it may be. Everybody, with every sense there is an associated type of taste. And it's these tastes that actually drive us on in what we do. People are working, people are earning money, going through life, pursuing their tastes. So the Vedas reveal that the Supreme Reality, the Supreme Person, is the source of all taste. And again, in this material world, the tastes are only reflected. You see, it's simply a fleeting taste, which comes and goes with time, temporary. But in the spiritual realm, the realm of deeper reality, the taste is like an eternal ocean, unlimitedly deep, And this is actually what the soul is looking for. So, and that is to be found in this realm of deeper reality. And the nectar that is achieved, it's a very interesting word in the Sanskrit language, for nectar. Nectar means when we attain this spiritual rasa, the spiritual taste, then it is the taste of nectar. And the word in Sanskrit for nectar is amrit. It's a very interesting word. It means, yes, nectar, but when you divide it up, a means not, and mrityu means death. So amrit means nectar, and it also means deathless, or eternal. So real happiness, real enjoyment, real satisfaction, the real nectar is to be found on the eternal plane. So this was the logic of the ancient Vedic civilization. That we are in this world temporarily, and yet we are spiritual beings, and we have an eternal goal. So the art of life is to live this temporary existence, present existence in this body, in such a way that the consciousness can be elevated to that eternal realm. Now, if this sounds to you like religion, well, yes. Again, if we take the literal sense of the word religion, from Latin religio, to connect again, then it's a synonym for the word yoga. In Sanskrit, yoga also means to link, to connect with the Supreme. But there's a difference also in our modern understanding. Religion is identified with mere belief. Again, coming back to the European division of science and religion. So science is something you can know, and religion is something only you can believe in. You see? And if someone starts to talk too much about knowing within the realm of religion, then people get a little worried. He's some kind of fanatic. Nobody can know really. But you see, this is my point, is that there was, and there still is for those who practice it, a process, the Vedic process by which one can extend knowledge into that realm beyond. Can know what is there, can experience it. And there's even proof of that. Modern scientific worldview wants proof. What's the proof? How do we know? So the proof is in the Sanskrit word achar, means conduct, one's conduct. Because one who's in connection with that amrit, that nectar, deathless nectar or eternal nectar, then will be able to live in this world in a state of pure conduct. Because he doesn't really want anything. This is one of the essential teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. That one who is in transcendental consciousness is not trying to satisfy his desires in this world. He lives in this world. Bhagavad Gita very much affirms that we should live out our duration of life in this world, perform our duty, live for the welfare of all. All of this is very much supported in the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. It's not a kind of suicidal philosophy. This world is empty of meaning, power. This is the way out. No, that is not the way out. That's the way, according to the Vedas, you can become a ghost or something like that. Forcibly take away your body. The subtle body, the astral body, the mind body still remains, but without a gross body. So that means then you wander the earth as a ghost for a long time. And that's not the goal of life, to become a ghost, believe me. So, but by living out one's life, performing one's duty in society, but developing one's consciousness, pure spiritual consciousness, then one's desires, they are focused on the eternal realm, on the realm of this Amrit, this deathless nectar of God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. So there was a standard mode of behavior that was seen in the ancient Vedic civilization, the behavior of a person who is known as the Brahmana. I mentioned the word Brahman as being a word for spirit, the realm of deeper reality. So one who knows that realm, the realm of Brahman, is a Brahmana, or in the anglicized version, a Brahmin. So Brahmin, maybe now in India, is too often seen to be just kind of hereditary caste, a priestly caste. But formerly, a Brahmana or a Brahmin was one who actually knew that realm of deeper reality, and his knowledge was seen in his behavior in this world. So a Brahmana lived in this world, practicing, for example, ahimsa, non-violence. He did not have an exploitative outlook upon other creatures. He saw other creatures as spiritual beings, and he worked for their welfare. Violence upon others means primarily, it means to hurt, of course, but more than just hurting the body, it means to stop their spiritual progress. This is why animal killing in Vedic civilization, animal killing, at least, there were types of sacrifices which could be performed using animals, but the basic law book of the Vedic civilization, the Manu Samhita, which is the basic book of law, asserts that it's the best type of sacrifice is without the killing of animals. And even this animal sacrifice was done to promote the souls of animals. So therefore it wasn't considered to be violent. But animal slaughter was completely forbidden. Animal sacrifice is one thing. That's very limited. And only for special occasions, for special types of people. But animal slaughter, big slaughterhouses, just marching in lines of animals and cutting their throats and tearing them apart and putting their meat in cans and shipping them off to all the supermarkets. This is something completely unheard of. It just wasn't done. And it's considered extremely sinful because those animals who are killed in that way, brutally, their life is suddenly stopped at that point, then they have a difficult time of moving beyond because of the consciousness. The consciousness becomes so shocked by that experience of death in that form of life that it's difficult for the soul to move beyond that. So, therefore, animal slaughter was considered to be extremely bad. So this is one of the things that was not seen in the life of a Brahmin. He was practiced ahimsa, non-violence. No violence towards other creatures, of course no violence towards human beings. No meat eating. Yes?
Why is offering different?
Why is what?
Offering animals different.
Animal sacrifice. Well, as I said, this was very limited and occasions, and it was performed in connection with government, with kings, the coronations of kings and things like that. So they would have like what's called an Ashvamedha sacrifice of horses to install a king on the throne. So it was different because in these sacrifices there was a process in ancient times of promoting the soul of those horses to higher realms. Now, the thing is that is forbidden in the modern age because there are no Brahmins who know how to do this. So the Vedic scriptures have proscribed that completely in the last 5,000 years. But prior to that time, in the ancient literatures like Mahabharata and the Ramayana, the ancient histories of India, we find that those kind of sacrifices were done more than 5,000 years ago. So if you want to feel that there's a contradiction in Vedic civilization, you can, but you just realize that contradiction goes back more than 5,000 years. So, but I'm talking about modern times. the modern world, you have this slaughterhouse culture, and that's nowhere approved. You see, even in the Western religious scriptures, you find statements like in the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament, the one who kills an ox is the same as one who kills a man. So you get the idea, you get the impression, even in Western scriptures, that animal slaughter was something that was restricted. There was some allowance for it, but it was restricted. Like in the Mosaic Code, you can eat meat, but only if all the blood has been pressed out of the flesh. So they press the flesh and they soak it in salt to get all the blood out. But careful examination will show that the blood never gets out completely. So actually, if one strictly follows the Mosaic Code, then one should be a vegetarian. So even in Western religious scriptures, you see that there's some restriction on meat eating, but there's none now, because science and religion have parted ways. So science has, actually it's technology that has made the slaughterhouse culture possible. Do you know that Henry Ford, in planning out his first automobile factory, what is it called, the assembly lines, you see? He got his inspiration, he got the design from studying slaughterhouses, how they kill cows and other animals. Kind of assembly line process, and that's how we have the modern automobile factory too. So this is all by the wonderful grace of modern science. These things are going on. And it's just totally at odds with the scriptural point of view. Whether we can say whether Vedic or any other scriptural point of view. That if you can do it, then do it. And do it to the max. This is the gospel of technology. When the automobile was invented, then it was, well, if you can drive a car, then why ride a horse? Take the cars. Now there are no horses anymore that you can see. There are only cars. They used to argue that the reason you should drive a car and not ride a horse is that the horse pollute the streets when they pass their excrement out of the rear end. There's, these what are called road apples all over the street. That's very polluting. So we should clean up the atmosphere and drive cars. Well, you see where that's taken us. So this is progress, modern progress. And so where is it all going? Well, that I don't know. But the way things are developing in the world today, it doesn't seem to be going in a very bright direction. So that is because there is a higher purpose to life, which this fascination for